The form we are going to look at doing now is called a Field Level Hazard Assessment, or an FLHA. So this is the form right here. We will select it to open up the form. A Field Level Hazard Assessment is a form that you'll be doing every morning before you start work for the day. So basically what it is it's a form where you identify different hazards that you might encounter out in the field over the course of the day that you're working. So whereas a hazard ID card is a hazard that you've noticed out in the field, an FLHA is a list of hazards that you may encounter. So to start off, we will select our client. So this list here is all the different clients that we do work for. So we'll say that we were doing work for Flha Fishing Lake, and we will select that client. A project level hazard assessment, or PLHA, exists, has been reviewed, and is understood by all employees. So a project level hazard assessment is similar to an FLHA, except that it is project specific. So there will be a PLHA for all the different projects that we have. So CNRL Fishing Lake being one of them. And this PLHA will state different hazards that are in the fishing lake field. It will tell you where are the best locations to fill up with water and hazards around filling up with water on those locations. It'll let you know where the nearest battery would be should you have to go for medical attention. So this PLHA is basically just a summary and a list of different safety aspects that you might want to know for being in the field. One of them being where the nearest hospital would be if you need to go to the hospital. So we'll say, yes, a PLHA exists and has been reviewed. So now we select what our PLHA is. So this here is a list of all the different PLHAs that we have. So we'll select CNRL Fishing Lake. We'll click on our company. So we're working for Marksman Vegetation. Date and time. We'll say today. And we'll say we started work at 4 in the morning. Formal job hazard assessments, or JHAs, exist, are readily available, have been reviewed for the scheduled work, and are understood by all employees. So JHAs, or job hazard assessments, are documents that give you a step-by-step on how to complete the specific task. So in your given day for work, you might have 8 different JHAs that exist. So there'll be a JHA giving you step-by-step procedures for how to fill your truck with water. There will be a JHA with step-by-step procedures for how to hand spray herbicides off of your truck. There will be a step-by-step procedure for how to boom off of your truck. So these are procedures that everybody should be familiar with, and they should know where to find these JHAs. So they will be located on the health and safety folder on Dropbox, and they are also in Cube. So in Cube, you can go to the JHAs, and you can have your screen will be filled with a list of all the different JHAs that we have. So we'll say, yes, we understand them and we know where they are located. Have all employees conducted a pre-use or pre-trip inspection on equipment that will be used for scheduled work? So we'll say yes. In one of the other videos that I have done, I have shown you guys how to fill out a truck and equipment inspection. So if you're watching this video and haven't seen that one yet, you can go and watch that video afterwards, and I will give you a rundown on how to fill out a truck inspection. And that's another form that you'll be using a lot over the summer. So an FLHA and a truck inspection are two forms you'll use it every single morning before you go out to work. Site-specific hazards. So in this area, we are going to enter hazards that we might come across during the day. So unless you've been told otherwise, every morning try to fill out at least 3 different hazards. So we'll look for hazards here. We can say environmental spray drift. And these hazards, just to note, these hazards will change on a day-to-day basis. So that whatever you put down today for hazards will probably be different than what you enter tomorrow for hazards. So let's say I know we start work at 4 in the morning, and I know by 10 a.m. it's supposed to be getting a bit windy out, and we will probably have to shut down for wind around noon. So in description, I will say potential for high winds today, constantly monitor wind speed, turn down pressure if needed, notify supervisor if wind gets too strong, and I think we should shut down. Whoop, not shut down, shut down. So potential for high winds today, constantly monitor wind speed, turn down pressure if needed, notify supervisor if wind gets too strong, and I think we should shut down. So all I'm saying here is that later on today it's supposed to get windy. If it gets too windy, I can turn down the pressure on our pump, and this will create larger water droplets, which basically larger water droplets means that they won't drift as much. They're heavier. They're more likely to fall to the ground than drifting off target and killing a farmer's crop, for example. So we enter the description for environmental. Location, we can say on lease in the fishing lake field. Controls discussed. So what are some controls that we can put in place to mitigate this hazard? So we can say keep pressure lower on truck. Don't spray sites surrounded by crop. Try to spray sites in trees to lessen the wind. Shut down if needed. So these are all different things that we can do to mitigate the hazard of the wind. So we'll keep our pressure low, which will create larger droplets, which will reduce the chance of drift. We won't spray sites if there's crop around it. If there's no crop around the site, we can't drift and kill crop. And we'll try to stay on sites that are surrounded by trees. So if there's trees around the site, you're less likely to feel the effects of the wind. So now we'll click on, I want to say this red arrow, or sorry, not red arrow. We'll click on this little red dash there. And maybe I don't want to. Maybe I'll click on, oh, sorry. Nope, we don't want to click on that. We want to click on right here where it says add row. So we'll select add row, and this will create a second hazard. And again, we want to have 3 hazards for the day. So what else could we encounter during the day that could be a hazard? We could say unsecure cargo. Description of it. On the back of our trucks, we have water pumps, we have hoses and water filters that we have to strap down. And if we miss any of these and they're not strapped down, then that creates a potential for them to fall onto the highway when we're in transport. So unsecured cargo, we'll say water pump, hoses, filters on back of truck that need to be strapped down and pose safety risk if not strapped down properly. Location, we'll say on back of, and then we can put whatever truck it is you're driving. So we'll say on the back of R2001. Controls discussed. So what different controls can we have in place that will lessen the chance that we will have unsecured cargo on our truck? So we can say, do walk around of truck in the morning before driving. Make sure that everything is strapped down properly and that all straps look to be in good condition. And then as well, so first thing in the morning, you can do a walk around of your truck because you don't know if anything has changed overnight. Maybe you got back to the shop at 4 and somebody got back at 5 and they wanted to use your pump quickly. So they took your pump off, used it, and then they put it back on your truck, but they forgot to strap it down. So lots of things could change. So first thing in the morning, do a walk around of your truck, make sure everything's strapped down and that your straps look to be in good condition. As well, during the day, there will be times when you take off your pump and your hoses to fill up with water and then you load them back up. So we can say every time during the day that we unload and reload equipment onto truck, also do a walk around to verify cargo is secure. So let's say during the day we get off the truck, we unload our water pump, we unload our filters and our hose, we fill with water, and then we load everything back onto the truck. Before we drive away from that area, we want to do a walk around of the truck, check the straps, make sure everything is strapped down, and make sure that all the straps are still looking to be in good working condition. Okay, so again, we have 2 hazards now. So we'll select add row, and we will enter our 3rd hazard. So we'll look for something else that'll apply to what we're going to be doing during the day. So we can say pinch points. A description of pinch points. So pinch points is an area where if you're not being careful, you have the chance of getting pinched. So one of the common ones would be the hose reels on the back of the truck. So on those reels, you have 300 feet of hose, and when you're reeling them up, you have one hand pushing the electrical button to give it power to reel it, and your other hand is on the hose guiding it back onto the reel. So it'll happen sometimes where maybe there's a kink in the hose or the hose is muddy and you're reeling it up and you don't notice this mud or kink coming up, and it can catch your hand and drag it towards the reel. So in this situation, it's easy to just let go of the button, it stops reeling up and your hand doesn't get caught. But this is just something that you have to be aware about. So for description, we'll say, be careful when reeling up hose. Kinks can drag your hand towards the reel. Location, again, we'll say on the back of R2001. Controls discussed. How do we mitigate pinch points and the chance of this happening? So we'll say reel up the hose slowly. Make sure to look down the length of the hose for potential kinks in it. And hold your hand back at least a foot from the hose reel to allow time for reaction. So I said at least a foot from the hose reel. Realistically, it's not hard to hold your hand back a couple feet from the hose rail. This just allows it so that if a kink does come up and catch your hand, it gives you lots of room to, let go of the power button or try to get your hand out or whatever it might be. It gives you lots of reaction time to prevent your hand from getting pinched. Okay, so now we have 3 hazards. We'll click on add row again just to look at some of the different hazards. So if we say select hazards, you can see there's a lot of them. They'll be different every day. Some days you could say ergonomic. Let's say you're doing a 3-hour drive to Edmonton. You could say ergonomic. If your back starts to get sore in the driver's seat, you can get out and stretch. Fatigue, frustration, you could enter that one down and say, the weather looks nice. We're going to work a full 12 hours today. We started at 3 in the morning. People might be tired. Make sure to communicate properly. Take your time in the morning. Take things slow. Miscommunication is another one, or overhead hazard. So there's lots of different hazards that you'll encounter every day. And an FLHA is just a way of identifying some of these hazards and talking about them and just trying to mitigate them. So we have filled out all the hazards. For other hazards, if there's something else that you want to add, you can enter other hazards here. But for the most part, we can just leave these blank. Use corrective and preventative actions to also record maintenance requirements, oil changes, etc. Are H2S monitors required? So on your day-to-day basis, yes, H2S monitors will be required. If you're doing some work in the shop for the day, then no, you don't need them. But on your day-to-day, if you're starting at the shop at 3 in the morning and you're driving out to work in the oil field for Fishing Lake, then yes, your H2S monitors are required. So we'll select that. We'll write down who the worker was. So I'll say, yes, I'm going out to Fishing Lake today. I need my H2S monitor. On the very back of your H2S monitor, there will be a number. And it's a pretty long number. It'll say something along the lines of SN3 dash, and then it might have 8 numbers on it. So all we're going to enter are the last 4 digits of that number. So I'll say mine was 0435. Enter that. Bump test passed. So I will perform a bump test, and as long as I pass, I will select yes. So a bump test is just you will have a can, and it will be filled with gas. And we'll have a little attachment, and it just attaches to your H2S monitor, and you'll just press the button, just give it a little blast of air. And as long as your H2S monitor is working properly, it will sense those gases and it'll start beeping. You remove the attachment, remove the canister from it, and within a few seconds, your H2S monitor should stop beeping and revert back to its normal state. So as long as all that occurs, you can say, yes, our bump test passed. If you're out of, if your canister of gas for your bump test is empty, notify your supervisor or your manager, and they can get you a new one. If there's 2 people working in a truck, I could click on add row, and this is just for my partner for the day. So I will say I'm working with Adonis for the day. I'll ask him, hey Adonis, what's your H2S monitor? He'll tell me it's 0897. We'll do a bump test for him. He passed as well. And we're all set as far as that goes. We'll select our supervisor. I will say that John was our supervisor for the day. Is the FLHA complete and ready for approval? Yes. And now we have an area for names on FLHA. So the reason that it says names on FLHA at the bottom is there will be some times where you're working and you do not need an H2S monitor. So if you don't need an H2S monitor, there's no area for you to enter your names onto this form. So at the very bottom, we have an area for names. So all we'll do is we'll just enter the names that we've already put down. We'll say add row. And there, we've just entered our names. So we have Adonis and Ben on the FLHA. And now all we have to do is click that arrow at the very top right of the screen and select submit. And that will submit our FLHA for the day.